What's up, YouTube, and welcome to part 3 of our introduction to Relic Knights. And today we're joined by Mark Dieter. How's it going, Mark?
All's well.
So, Mark, you are the host of a podcast, actually a few, but the one that we're going to talk about here is Questing Knights. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and the podcast?
Well, like you said, Octave, I do Questing Nights podcast, which is a Ninja Division focused audio-only podcast. Right now, we're kind of starting with Relic Knights, since that's the current hotness. Getting a little bit into Super Dungeon Explorer as Forgotten King comes out, and hoping to kind of branch off into the Cypher end. As we start to figure out more and more about Anima and Helldorado, which I know you're a big fan of both.
Absolutely. All right, great. Well, where do we find the Questing Knights podcast?
QuestingKnightsPodcast.com.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Well, I've been listening to the show so far. I've loved every single episode, especially the last one. I think I mentioned several times in that one. But yeah, it's a very good show, guys. Please check out Mark and Questing Knights podcast. I actually listen to you guys on my lunch break, so it's perfect for that. All right. So today, what we're going to get into, though, is this is part 3, choosing a faction. And frankly, guys, I think I need a little help here myself, because I've been playing some Relic Knights, and hopefully this discussion with Mark will help me make some decisions regarding the factions in Relic Knights. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to crack open the big rule book here, and we're going to go straight over to the factions and really just kind of take it from there and share our experiences and our impressions of each faction, and we'll hopefully this will help you guys. Obviously, I'm going to flip open the pages as well, so you can look at some of the aesthetics, because aesthetics is a big part of choosing your faction. Obviously, you want to have the models that you find the most pleasing.
Yeah.
Okay. So
probably, Octave, the first thing to really say about choosing a faction, and we're going to go through this, is we're making more generalizations.
Yes.
You're always going to be able to find some corner case. Well, this is a melee faction, except for here's one model or two models. So it's going to be more of a generalization of this is the rough feel that we get from each faction.
Right. And also your knight or your questing knight or your relic knight will also change the playstyle of your cadre based on their cadre ability. So we'll just make these caveats up front. Obviously, this is generalization, so if we say something slow or fast, internet, please be kind. All right, so we're going to start here with Doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you play Doctrine, Mark?
I do not.
Okay, I play. This is one of the factions that I started playing. Doctrine, they're basically the school, for lack of a better term here, they're the school of magic. And Doctrine, they study all things Esper. Esper is that force in the universe that we are fighting over and collecting in Relic Knights to help power a lot of the attacks and abilities in the game. So we're going to flip through Doctrine here. Any initial thoughts on Doctrine, Mark?
Doctrine to me feels like it's a heavy in flavor.
Okay.
I mean, you got the schoolgirl aesthetic is really prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
It's very magical in feel, which tends to come out as a lot of psychic attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So as a faction, you're right. I mean, some of their main mechanics involve psychic attacks, the ability to manipulate Esper, because both the questing knight, the current questing knight that's out, and the relic knight are big on manipulating Esper through your cadre, and also they give themselves bonuses for Esper. So so that's probably some of the main themes here. For Doctrine. Via meta, very, very popular, unique to take for her ability to attack things without line of sight. She's really a, more of an artillery type unit. Also, Tugan and Cecilia as the officer for the novitiates, and they're kind of a disruption unit, and also they form that officer role. Librarians are popular right now. Those are slow, tankier units, and then obviously one of the mainstay troops, or the yeah, we'll call them mainstay squads for Doctrine, are the novitiates, which they're kind of glass cannons. They go down very, very quickly. However, they have a lot of utility on the field. They can pump out a significant amount of damage for very cheap, Esper wise, and they can even generate Esper for your cadre. So Doctrine, the way I've been playing them is, again, it's mostly Esper manipulation. You have some units that are really hard hitting, like novitiates, but pretty soft themselves, and then you've got other units like librarians that are much tougher and slower. So yeah, that's basically how I've been playing them.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've played against Doctrine, they are very high damage output in the ranged element, and they are very ranged efficient.
Hmm.
They can do a lot for a little. And there's some really interesting tricks that you can do with stuff like, I mean, the prefects are a really good one for some of those tricks. You know, if you listen to the Black Diamond players, the prefects can do the same stuff.
Very cool. Okay, so that's Doctrine, a very brief overview of them. We're going to move over here to the next prismatic. By the way, we're doing all prismatics first and then the void. So the next prismatic faction up is Circe Speed Circuit. This is basically a racing themed faction. A lot of their tricks are movement based. They're a very fast faction. They've been accused of being pillow fisted, and I can see some of where that comes from, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with that myself. But anyway, what's your impression, your initial impression here of Circe?
The speed is just off the charts. They are the fastest faction, hands down. And they do have a lot of AoE control, which I think a lot of people don't necessarily pick up on right away. I mean, they're really good at moving your stuff around and preventing you from being in certain spots.
That's actually very good observation. I never think to tell people that, even though I completely agree with it. They're aesthetic wise, again, it's a very interesting faction aesthetically. They're basically built on racing, so you'll see a lot of mechs, a lot of like pit crew type models, some robotic models. But this is one of my favorite factions aesthetically, so obviously I'm a big Circe player here. Their Relic Knight is Princess Malia, who gains some really crazy speed bonuses based on her held Esper, and then she also has the ability to give her cadre another feint, making her entire cadre much faster as well. Then you've got a couple of questing knights out right now. Suicide Queen, who actually plays a little bit more like a Corsair's model, if you ask me, based on her Esper use and some of her abilities. And then you have Marie Claude, who is sort of a healing area control type of questing knight. So, do you play this faction, Mark?
No, I'm totally on the other side of the fence on this.
Okay. Some of the more common units that you'll see are going to be this pair here, Betty and Lug. Just very high versatility between these two units. You've got some range damage output here. You've got Lug, who is a great kind of an anvil type model here. So you'll see a lot of Betty and Lug usually with Circe builds, and I tend to field them quite a bit because I love the models and they are quite fun. There's some folks really love the Royal Wrecker for the tow ability and some of the other abilities as well. The Pacer, very underrated model. I think what you were talking about with area control, this guy is really fantastic at it. And then finally, right now their main squad of choice, their two main squads are the pit crew, more of a repair style crew. Very soft models, unfortunately, but yeah, they've got some really good use to them. And then the Hell's Bells, which are their kind of racing bike squads that have pretty good attacks, and they're more of their offensive based troop here. So, Cersei Speed Circuit, one of my favorites right now. This is one of the ones that I'm just jostling for possible main faction for me. They also have a very, we didn't talk about faction scenarios, but in that section, I'll say that they have a very easy one to complete if you know what you're doing. Okay, so any more thoughts before we move on?
No,
Okay.
I think Cersei is fairly much, what you see is what you get.
Yep, I agree with that. All right, so we're going to move over to the third and final of the prismatics here. This is Shattered Sword. Do you want to give us an intro on Shattered Sword, Mark?
Shattered Sword has a very Crusader Paladin feel to it. The Council of Six, it's your kind of holy order without necessarily bringing a religious feel into it. So they're going to be very melee focused in feel and extremely high defenses.
Yeah, they do have a lot of defensive tech in this faction. Is this one of the? Would this be one of your?
I will play Shattered Sword. I mean, that's the third one up for me.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, very cool faction aesthetically, like Mark was saying with the knights, and then there's even like sort of a Gundam robotic feel to some of the units as well. So starting with their questing knight Sebastian Cross, this guy's just a full-blown tank as far as my experiences with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can get, easily armor 8 without really trying. His cadre ability is to redirect to him. So it's very easy to start negating damage if you can get him in a beneficial place.
Now, Sebastian isn't terribly fast. That's the price that he pays for his armor. However, he does have some movement tricks up his sleeve, so don't discount his speed, or at least the speed of his cadre with regards to his abilities. There are 2 questing knights out right now. Jean Ramay, am I saying that right to the French folks? I think so. I haven't played her yet. I painted her, but really looking forward to playing her. She doesn't seem to have any attacks at all, but she has a compel, which is really strong, and then she's got a lot of AoE buffs and armor buffs available to her cadre.
Well, and oddly, her buffs seem to be objective based. So, I mean, I think this will be one of those, what people feel about her will determine if they were a war gamer coming into Relic Knights, or if they were a card gamer coming into Relic Knights.
Interesting.
I think this will be a determining.
Wow, that's an interesting observation. I can see where you're coming from, too, with that. Huh. Okay, I'm going to have to play her then. You just convinced me. And then we have Francis Mallory, who's an interesting leader for your group. He's a much more strategic-based leader. He gives you the ability to redeploy some units, and then can also change your activation queue. So very, very fun, interesting playstyle with Mallory. Okay. As far as units are concerned, one of the almost auto includes I've seen is Isabeau. Is that been your experience as well?
Yes.
Isabeau is she's one of, in my opinion, she's one of the most probably one of the best unique support units in the game, with her just crazy good healing abilities. And what's the combo? A lot of people like to run her with the Swordsworn. Is that right?
Yeah, I've seen her with the Swordsworn. I mean, that healing aura, too, is just really powerful if somebody's paying attention, again, to positioning. So.
And also point out Creation Master. So just because you see 2 abilities here, when you guys are going through the book, pay attention to where, stuff that says like Creation Master or Esper Master or anything like that, because that's a whole other set of abilities in the book that these characters will have access to. Isabeau, big one. Myself, I'm struggling to fit Ostrakin in my cadre, even though I know he's potent in the other areas of Esper, but I don't know. He hasn't been popular locally. People try him out and they're like, I'm having a hard time building a hand that he can use.
Well, and that's part of the weird part about it, Octave, is that all his Esper usage is off color.
Hmm.
So, yes, you can use it, but it feels like you're going against a hand you're trying to sculpt for the rest of your cadre to hope that you get what you need in hand when he's up.
Yeah, it's almost like for some of these models, when you incorporate them, you put them in queue when you know that your deck is about to run out of your favorite Esper, so that you've got some utility out of them. At least that's in theory. I've been playing it that way, and I'm still terrible with Ostrican. So, uh, let's see. Shattered Sword. The final thing I'd point out, some really awesome. I can't wait for this guy to come out. It's amazing.
Yes.
The final unit I want to point out, even though Purifiers are a fairly good unit, I want to point out this Swordsworn as being one of the more popular of their squads, just because of their utility. They've got cheap ranged attacks, they've got a decent melee attack, good armor, and they've got a guard on a squad, which is pretty tough to find. So I see at least one unit of Swordsworn in every Shattered Sword list. I almost always see Isabeau, and then some of the other units are a little bit more interchangeable than that. Overall, this is the second possible #1 spot for me. So I can't decide between them or Speed. Really, that's for that main spot. Okay, so what we were looking at so far are the prismatic units, and we'll explain prismatic and void when we get to those specific builds. But essentially, there are 3 factions that are prismatic. Essentially, for lack of a better term, they're kind of the light or positive factions. The other 3 are void, which are dark, or we'll just say negative factions, but not necessarily good or bad guy. That's one thing to keep in mind here. Okay, so we're going to move over to Black Diamond.
Okay, now you're in my wheelhouse.
All right, let's talk Black Diamond, Mark, if you will lead us in here.
Black Diamond is your paramilitary mercenary organization.
Mm-hmm.
We are high armor and ranged efficiency. There's some shenanigans that can go on in the Black Diamond.
Mm-hmm. Very cool aesthetically too.
Yes. One shot has been my girl of choice.
Okay.
I've not actually tried Leopold yet, but one shot is, it's as a heavy damage ranged unit, and probably one of the nicer abilities, Octave, that people they kind of key in on as being her main ability, which is the Daystar Blast.
Yeah.
Which is the overboosted line attack.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty devastating attack. In fact, one of our local players, when he does Daystar Blast, he actually yells it through the store every time he fires it. Daystar Blast! And he'll yell it through the store, which is amusing and sometimes annoying, but cool.
For me, I almost find it to be something to not rely on because it's extremely expensive and hard. You have to sculpt your hand for it. Mm-hmm. And word of thought for people who are going into one shot is you can target a friendly, or you could target your own token.
That's right. You can target a marker or an objective, right?
Mm-hmm. And the great thing is when you target your own objective, they can't deal with the repercussions of redirecting it because they're not the target.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a very good ability. I've seen usually the players that are playing one shot locally, they'll use Daystar Blast 1 or maybe 2 times per game, but they do pick the right spot to do that. They usually have it all lined up, and it is a very devastating attack.
The other thing I really love with her, and not to gush on one shot too much.
Oh, that's fine.
It's just the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to control your own queue at a moment's notice is nice. If you see something that you messed up and one shot's next, you can reset your queue. That's a very important ability people forget, especially in larger games where you have a longer queue.
It's a good point. Okay. Yeah, it's one shot. Obviously, one of the mainstay for the knights. I played Magnus myself once, but I barely count it. I was learning the game at that point. Um, One of the things that stands out to me, Esper Thief is a cadre ability. That can send a lot of Doctrine players, make Doctrine players a little paranoid. But Magnus, no, I mean he looks like a very solid piece. I just wish I had actually played him when I played him. Currently, no other questing knight out, right?
Sure.
For Black Diamond, a lot of folks waiting on Codebreaker because he brings
Yes.
a really unique play style to the game. To you Malifaux folks, he kind of reminds me of the old V1 Leviticus in how he plays, just kind of recycling Esper through
Hmm.
the slaved Esper. But in this case, you do not want the slaved Esper to die.
Yep.
So well, maybe sometimes you do, because I think he blows up right if he dies. But very interesting playstyle there. Um, Sophia Drake is another popular one, or I don't know, at least locally.
Yes.
Um,
For me, she is an auto include.
she's an auto include.
She goes in. There's
Okay.
no doubt about it.
Can you give us a little breakdown of her real quick?
Well, she is the leader of the Black Dragons, which probably the one thing Octave I really love about it is just the linked Black Dragon.
Hmm.
Because again, you can control your activation queue by putting her and the Black Dragons into the queue together.
And then
They
pulling one over.
they both go over, and you suddenly got 2 slots free for every one that your opponent gets.
Hmm.
I mean, again, she's a high damage. She has quite a few health boxes.
Got 3 armor too, which is nice.
Yeah, 3 armor. I mean, she has a nice buff. Just all around. I mean, it's for me, her and a squad of Black Dragons are pretty much an auto include.
Cool. So, and then this one we see quite a bit too. Suspect 7. This is a unique. This is a unique squad. Kind of a triple ninja setup, actually. Even though they're all technically the same lady, just
Hmm.
from different
Mentions.
universes. Yeah. A lot of people are using her as there are 2 ways I've seen her run. You can split them all up, which is one of their main abilities, is the fact that they don't require um, squad cohesion the way the other squads do,
Hmm.
and run objectives, which is a very powerful way of running Suspect 7. Other folks
Yes.
actually use the mob rule and use her as kind of a melee squad as well. But I think the main thing I've seen is people use her as an objective runner.
Yes. Yeah, that's how I've been using her. You can send 2 of them to different objectives, and if you need to get something back to your board edge, you have one hanging out at home, and the other 2 going out and doing whatever needs to be done. And it feels kind of cheap at times, but it works.
Awesome. All right. Then you've got these 2 units, the Blitz Auto Tank and the Diamondback. Very fun models, although I will admit I don't see a whole lot of these being fielded on a regular basis. What I do see most of are at least 1 unit of Diamond Core.
Hmm.
People really like the Diamond Core for their cheap attack and the coordinated fire. A lot of times with one shot, and actually when people go that route, they try to field a couple of units of Diamond Core.
Hmm. And the nice thing about the Diamond Corps is they were the only basic troop unit, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
from the playtest that got a points reduction. So they are the cheapest full-size squad,
Yeah,
and they can be fielded 5 man for 5 points, where everyone else is 5 men for 7.
that's true. They are a very very points efficient unit here.
Hmm.
Good point. Any other thoughts on Black Diamond while we're in this
No,
area here? All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep it moving along. There's the Black Dragons that Mark was talking about. The much sought after unit for folks that missed the Kickstarter. A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah. I
people
mean,
chasing you down for Black
yep.
Dragons.
Yep. Yep.
So if you see it in your store, you see it on eBay, you're probably going to go for that if you're playing Black Diamond. Okay, so we'll move over to the No Empire. This is kind of an Oni looking faction. These are kind of the marauders and raiders of this final galaxy here. Their whole theme is basically enslaving and raiding.
No, they're
Um,
coming. They're coming to save us all. Okay, get it right.
okay, so from the sounds of it, this is another one of your wheelhouse factions here.
Yeah,
Is
this is the
that
one I'm
fair?
I'm planning to paint up nicer than just to slap some paint on and go.
Okay.
Um, I mean, this is a melee heavy faction.
Okay.
Um, there's a lot of forced movement. I think every single unit in this faction, except for the 2 female questing knights, can force something else to move, whether it's a push or a compel
Or pull.
or a pull.
Mm-hmm.
So every single thing in this faction can be redirecting. And I think that's, again, I mean, a lot of people came through to the No originally and said, well, we're melee and there's no penalty for moving out of melee. What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Look a little deeper. You can bring people to you.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a really good point, especially like we'll take their Relic Knight right now, Kasaruto, which is a gigantic, huge model. And he's standing on top of his relic to make himself even taller.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he has a few different. He's got a range snare here, which is pretty useful when I've been playing him. Is like you said, a lot of people think, oh well, you can just run out of melee, no biggie. But his range snare I've been using quite a bit, and then he has some really brutal melee attacks when it comes down to it.
I think Casaro is going to excel in larger games,
Hmm.
given his dimensional gateway ability, which
That's
allows you to pull a card out of your idol and move it immediately to the link spot. So he becomes kind of a toolbox knight. The more units you have, the more tools that he can pull at a moment's notice.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've played Kasaru To early when I was learning Relic Knights, and the main thing I was using was snare and beat stick, but I really haven't been using that dimensional gateway. So very good point there. They have 2 questing knights currently available. Zeneda, who comes in the starter, very popular model because she does have some abilities that I believe don't require line of sight.
Yes.
So very like spell casting, psychic type playstyle that you get with Zeneda. And then you also have Marikanto, who I believe just recently came out, but I got her with the Kickstarter. This
Same.
is a ranged model that that bestows stealth on the entire cadre, which is quite nice.
Well, and the other nice thing, Octave, is you really can play Marikanto as another model that ignores line of sight, because as long as her cipher can see something,
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
she can see it too. So it
fantastic.
really gives an advantage to the female No that they can pretty much see whatever they need,
Hmm.
and they're on 50 and 40 millimeter bases. So
Yeah, we should point out that this, for model-wise, this faction has pretty much all medium to large size models. Other than the ciphers, you're really not getting anything on 30s here. Uh, so okay, well, my experience with No is fairly limited. So do you want to point out maybe a couple of different units that you see as mainstays for this type of for this faction?
I'm really liking the Serpent Priestess.
Okay.
I mean, again, the cheap compel is just wonderful.
And the thing that sticks out here to me, Channel Esper. That is quite nice on a minion.
Hmm.
Channel Esper basically at the start of her activation, similar to a Cipher, she's going to gain a held Esper, that is fantastic.
Well, and then the other thing is, as long as she's close to another no model, she has a passive buff in her blessing.
Fantastic. Nice. And the 7 point minion here, very nice,
Hmm.
pretty nice point load out there. Um, you see a lot of renders, and I'm not sure if that's because they're in the starters or people are favoring them. The line attack is I think what most people are leaning on because they're to me they seem fairly one-dimensional there. That's really what you take them for.
Yeah, I mean the line attack is an easy low fruit to grab. I mean it's still very very powerful, and like I said, with one shot, there are some real shenanigans that you can get if if you can line it up.
Hmm. Beastmaster is another like much awaited unit that's about to come out, which a lot of people, no players are excited for because they're pairing with the beasts and their
Hmm.
ability to pull them into link slots like the hounds. And this big guy, I don't even know how to say his name, Dahone,
Yep, yep,
huge
that's how I
model.
pronounce it. Yes, I'm waiting for this one.
That's on your Christmas list.
Yes, that's on my to pick up list.
And then the Kyojin Berserkers also they come in the starter.
Mhm.
So you'll see a lot of those fielded currently. What are your impressions of this unit?
They can put out a lot of damage, but I almost feel like the fact that they have no armor uh, really kind of hinders them. Just because if your opponent focuses fire, they're going to go down.
Hmm.
They have no armor, they have no redirect, they have no guard. Yes, they have 8 boxes, but it doesn't take much to knock one out. And as long as you can knock out a full one, then the recover never matters.
Right, right. I know from experience that if you line up the novitiates to hit this unit, they will kill one outright. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, as long as you can keep the novitiates out of harm's way, these guys aren't that big of a problem. However, they do sport a decent move here. They've got a 6/6 move, and then they have a charge attached to one of their melee attacks, so they can get across the board and get at you if you're not careful.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, with that, we're going to move over to the final of the Void factions here, the Star Nebula Corsairs, which I have almost no experience with, and I really want to have experience with them. I want to pick up Kate at one point because I really do love the model. Um,
Yeah, it's something I put on the table once, and it's not jumping out at me as a faction. It feels like it's a bunch of pieces.
yeah, it's a kind of a catch-all, if
Yeah.
you will.
And I know there's synergy there. It's one of those that feels like it's just below the surface. And once somebody figures out something that'll work, then Corsairs are going to shoot to the top. But right now, it feels like there's a lot of uniques, so it's hard to come through and lump the Corsairs together because they're a bunch of individuals,
Hmm.
which they're pirates.
Yep.
Thematically, it works.
The aesthetic is a pirate theme, which is beautiful, and I really enjoy. That's my main reason for looking at this. And I'll point out that I actually do own a fair bit of Corsair models. I just have never played them. Like I have Iron Chef, which is a fantastic model. Um, and yeah, they do seem like a lot of uniques, a lot of individuals. And I'll actually share my experience when we leave this faction because I'll explain how that works. So obviously, their Relic Knight Calico Kate, very fun model. Um, one of the things that sticks out in my mind when people tell me that hey, their Cipher can actually do damage to you, that's always quite fun.
Mhm.
In his minefield ability here. And Kate, I hear, is actually a fairly strong knight, fairly strong, well-rounded knight in her abilities. Um, but again, I don't really have any practical experience with her. but looking forward to trying her out. Some of our folks locally are playing Harker. 'Cause Harker has some has that looter cadre ability that kind of people really enjoy for objective grabbing. Gives them a little bit more movement amongst them, and then he does have a fairly strong ranged attack here, which is his overcharge damage 7 that can go to 9. Pretty strong abilities here with Harker. I really know nothing about these other characters here.
Yeah,
I
I
read
don't know
some
much.
fluff on him, but he's apparently just kind of a cruel dude, but I don't really know much else about him.
The one thing that really kind of excites me about Golden Vance is his cadre ability is a heal.
Oh, that's nice.
So it feels like it might give you a chance to, try a few things, and if it doesn't work, you can always fall back to a backup plan.
Hmm.
And then his Cypher has healing aura.
Oh, wow.
So you're getting this healing aura out of the pirate.
Very cool.
And the one thing, I mean, Moffat seems to be the one that people seem to like to target, and I haven't quite figured out how to make her click, because the one time I put her down, she was the first thing that people went after.
Well, she does have a lot of really cool movement tricks, and that's what sticks out for me. And aesthetically, she's like one of my favorite models in the game. But yeah, you're right. We do see a lot of Moffat. I don't see as much Iron Chef as I thought I would. Not a lot of people fielding Iron Chef. You might see some Kanobo. The broadside cannons. Not a lot of people are fans of the cannon. A lot of people are telling me, no, it's not really worth fielding that cannon. The one thing that they like about it is it fits a 6-point slot, but I don't know. Have you
And
fielded
again,
this?
it's a line. I mean, that line ability is really nice. But I mean, the artillery, if you will, across the factions, I haven't seen a lot of.
Okay.
The PC breaker team, and then again the broadside cannon.
hmm
People don't seem to, like you said, don't seem to respond quite as well.
Corsairs, we see a lot of. And that might just be a consequence of them being in the starter, but a lot of folks are telling me that Corsairs are a fairly respectable unit.
Well, they can do a little bit of everything. They have some range, they have some melee, they have some armor. So they're a fairly well-rounded unit for 5 to 7 points.
hmm Great. Yeah, that's what I say. I wish I could say more about this faction because I love it aesthetically. I'm looking forward to playing it at some point. Any final thoughts here on Corsairs before we move over to the last two?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. So those were the 6 factions that we talked about. Again, 3 prismatic, 3 void, and there is a final means by which you can assemble a cadre, and that is by fielding. I guess they've kind of lumped them together as prismatics, right? In this book.
Yes.
Well, there are prismatic and void models in this book. So we'll move over to here. I'll show off a model because I have one painted that I haven't shown off. So here's actually I'll do a better video with you guys. Sorry about this, but this is the Candy Knight. And one of the interesting things in this game is you can actually field models that have the same name as long as they're from different universes. So you can field, for example, Candy Knight, you can field Dark Space Candy, and you can field Candy Heart, all on the same list, which is quite fun. So here, Candy Knight is the Radiant Knight. I'm sorry, I should say Radiant or Void. I don't know why I kept saying Prismatic, but collectively they're called Prismatics. The Radiant Relic Knight, she's very popular locally. I have one painted, but I haven't played her. As you can see, she's still on my painting desk. Some of the stuff that stands out here with her, people really like her heal ability, her cadre ability, which is a heal, and she just has seem to have some really good efficiency to her. She's got a 10-8 fly, which is fantastic. And then she's got this recover ability that is her what do you call that? Esper. Shoot, I forget the term. Esper. It's
Mastery?
no, it's the name of a. There's a podcast named after this. Esper Expression. There you go.
Yes, extra
Yes.
expression.
So yeah, her Esper expression is quite good as well. Um, so Candy, obviously Cola, the is her cipher. Then you've
Mhm.
got Cordelia Clean, who is their unique, very strong model. Again, here's another model with a an overcharge line that's a pull. Um, I'm sorry, those are two separate abilities. But overcharge line is her damaging line, and then she does have a pull that's also a line. It's kind of that fits her theme as a kind of the robot maid. So she's got a vacuum setting, uh, which is quite cool. And so she's another very popular model. Again, Channel Esper shows up on this model, which is quite nice. Um,
Yes.
and the other thing I would point out with the other Radiant models, Candy Heart, she's going to gain 2 held when she refocuses. So putting those together, Cordelia Clean, Candy Heart, and the Candied Knight has been very popular. Um, just because you get to field a couple of models named Candy, and
Mhm.
it's a very fun theme there. Have you played any of the Radiant stuff, Mark?
No, no. The Void is on the painting table, but
Hmm.
I haven't quite broken down and got into them yet.
Cool. Okay. And then the other side of that, like we were talking about, is Void.
Mhm.
Now, I mentioned back at the Corsair section that I have some experience playing Corsairs, and that's due to how you build a Radiant or a Void cadre. Is that you can take a Radiant or a Void Knight, but then to fill up their ranks, you don't take troops. You take uniques from their affinity factions. So, for example, if you're playing Void, you can take uniques from Black Diamond, No, or Corsairs. And my experience with the Corsair models are actually from fielding this guy here, Harbinath. So he's the Void cadre that I field, Harbinath, which is a kind of a really brutal model as far as his ability to beat people up and take Esper from them when they're dead. Uh, so he's a very strong model. I will field him with some of the Corsair uniques like I was talking about. Moffat is a popular one. I will also take Iron Chef in this case because I really like the Iron Chef interaction with Harbinath's
Cypher?
Cipher and his ability to continue to transfer Esper and do all that good stuff while Iron Chef has that AoE up is quite nice. Have you played any of the Void stuff yet?
I have not. I'm planning, like I said, my Void list, and it really feels, guys, that the Radiant side of the Prismatic has a lot more choices to choose from at
I
this
would
point.
agree with that. Yes, yes.
It really feels like a lot of the quote unquote evil, if you will, the Voids, their uniques tend to be officers.
Hmm.
So without being able to also bring the squad that the officer is part of, it almost feels like you're paying a penalty tax for the officer ability. Whereas the flip side, the prismatics really feel like um, there's not as much of a penalty tax, and their uniques tend to be more
How about more individually um,
more
efficient?
focused.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, efficiency.
yeah. They're. I would agree with that. That's my initial impression too. I haven't. I mean, I haven't really played. I played like the Candy Heart, and I played a lot of the pieces individually, but I have yet to put them together because I really got to get Candy Knight on the board. But that's been my impression of their uniques, and I totally agree with you. The one thing I would uh, also add though is I probably want to throw in, say, the Dark Space models like Dark Space Iron Chef and Renfera into that mix and find out if that's what kind of builds we can gain there. Dark Space Isabeau, and I'm sorry we're like off book now, but but Dark Space Isabeau, she's an interesting character. I haven't quite figured out her use yet besides looter and that crazy flip 8 ability she has on her ranged attack. But
Do
this
you
is
like
all
the flips? Do you
you
like
know
the flip ability?
when I'm playing Chaos, I do because it's thematic. I don't know that like if we were playing a heavy competitive game, I don't think I would be leaning so much on those flip abilities. But I do find them fun and entertaining. I have actually seen people bring them to competitive situations though and
Okay.
perform well with flips. And what they've explained to me is that hey, it's a matter of kind of understanding what your odds are going to be at what point in your deck. If you force a reshuffle, that can help. If you've had if you're early into your deck and you know you've got a lot of chaos coming, because most of the flips benefit chaos,
Hmm.
and you lose points for law, depending on
Yes.
the ability. That's usually how they work. But yeah, that's been my impression of it. I've been using it mainly for entertainment factor, so
Okay.
I might not be a good person to listen to with this regard. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I think you're right. It's better later game, where early game you want that in your hand. You don't want to be shuffling it away.
mhm,
So
mhm. Great. So yeah, I mean that was actually a pretty extensive tour through the factions here. I don't know that I'm any closer to a decision because I think I've decided I've liked everything now. So what about yourself? What do you? I can tell from your description of Black Diamond that that may be one of your focuses. But what else
I,
do you
I'm
have?
I'm I mean I'm currently putting Black Diamond on the table, and No is on the painting table to be taken some time with. With them being larger models, it's a little bit easier to put a little more time into them.
Hmm.
Um, from here, I'll probably go ahead and pick up the Void. Although,
The Void models are phenomenal. Let me
but,
just say,
but then,
Harbinath and Emiliel, I think that's
hmm
her name.
yep,
Phenomenal models. They really are.
yep, and then that of course will force the pirates. So,
So we're actually building in opposite direction because I see
mhm.
myself more on the Radiant side. So we're gonna have to line up a game because we're both playing opposite sides of
Yes,
the
yes.
Esper division here. So uh, okay, any final thoughts on choosing a faction before we close out this section?
I think honestly, guys, um, pick what looks good to you, because the best way to get to know the game is to put models down. So pick something that appeals to you and see if you can make it work. Don't force something that, well, no one else is playing this faction and I really don't like it. Pick what you like.
Awesome. That's I totally agree with that too. And pick your aesthetic that you like. And in this game, aesthetic really does line up with playstyle. So if something
Mhm.
looks fast, it's going to be fast. If something looks
Yep.
armored, it's going to be armored. So I think you can't really go wrong, guys. So, and then if you're like me, just play everything, and you'll be fine.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, want to thank Mark for joining us for this section. Um, your your uh, your insights have been really helpful, sir, and look forward to more Relic Knights uh, content from you and from the Questing Knights podcast. And so I think that's going to be it for this section. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will catch you on the next one.